Alright, here's a little help video for number 50. So this is the opposite of the last situation. So in this situation, what we're looking at is that we're looking at the middle 50%. So if we take 50% and we think about it and we cut it in half, that means that we're looking for 25% increments or pieces that are around the mean. So that means right here, this is right smack in the middle. This is symmetrical normal distribution. That means that we would travel over, and this isn't exact, but we'll just say about right there. And that distance right there would be equal to 25%. So we would do the exact same on this side, and then that distance right there would be 25%. And so what we have is we have the middle 50%. So what this activity does is it helps you understand how the normal distribution curve works and what it means. So when you're reading data, it makes sense to you when people talk about the middle 50%. We're talking about those data values that fall in this window. It's kind of the same thing as if I said to you right here, that would be the middle 68%. And that's the normal distribution rule, right? 68, 95, 99.7. So what we're just trying to do is break this down a little more, kind of look at it a little more in depth. So same concept, same idea. Now the difference is that we need to look at that area on either side. So the way that we find the area on a normal distribution is we look at that. We look at that distance right there. So we don't look at this in terms of the area from 25% right here. We look at it as a distance from the left to that data value, to this mark, to this, let's call it z-score, okay, to that data value right there. So that's what we're looking for, is the area under the curve to the left. So how do we do that? Well, we know that the distance from the lower extremity to the middle of my curve is equal to 50%. So we know that from here to here, that is 50%. So one way of doing this is go ahead and say, okay, well, we take, and don't get confused with the other 50%. Notice I changed colors here. I'm on to a different concept. I've moved past it. So now what I'm looking at is I'm looking for that data value below. So I take my 50% minus my 25. Remember, I'm looking for this data value, this mark right here, minus 25, and I find out that I have 25%. Okay, well that's pretty straightforward. I mean, I guess it probably won't always be that pretty, but that's pretty easy. So we take that. Remember, we move that decimal place. The decimal's right here, so we go over 1 2 times. So we get 0.25. So that is the percentage, or excuse me, the area under the curve that I'm looking for. So I travel to my table E, and I scan through, and I'm looking for 0.25. So I'm looking around, 0.25, 0.25. It's so small. Okay, right there. Okay, so let me grab my little line. Let's come across right here. Okay, so remember, you can't go over the 0.25. So when I scan this row right here, I got 2.245. The 5 would make the 4 round up. That's close. Here I got 2483. So 83 is closer than 51. So this looks pretty good. If we go one more, we go over. So that's too much. So we can't go over, so then we're going to look at that guy right there. Now, our corresponding value would be on the other end of the spectrum. So we found that, that means that our z-score, some lagging issues here, let's see. That means that my z-score, so I take my line tool, and I would come down like that, and so I'd come across, and I got negative 0.67, negative 0.68. Alright, so we've got this data value of 25%. That takes us over to our z-score of negative. So remember, it's going to be positive or negative. This one's the negative version, so negative 0.68. Okay, so now let's just go to positive 0.68 and see what we get. So in my last video, I kind of stumbled around and made that little mistake. So let's just go across to positive 0.68. Okay, so there it is. Okay, now what I want you to think about is this, is that if we look at the curve right here, this would be 100%. So then, just like we did below, we're looking for that that mark below there, so this 50% total for this piece right here. So that means that that would be 25% from here to that location. If we take 100 minus 25, we get our 75%. So that means that essentially what we're saying is that everything from here down would be 75%, and from here up would be 25%. So we need a number somewhere around there. So we go back to our table and we look at that and we see, oh, well, we got 0.7517, which when we move the decimal place over 2 times, 1, 2, is 75%. If we went below, if we went to the 7486, then that would round up to 75, but it would actually be over because that distance right there, if you subtracted that, you'd see that would be more than 25%. So we need to find the one that's just underneath, which matches up with our 0.68. Sorry. Which matches up with our 0.68. So what does this mean? This means when we come back to our data, or to our diagram, excuse me, the z-score that represents the middle 50% is between, in this case right here, this would be a negative 0.68, and this would be a positive 0.68. And those would be our z-scores that represent that middle 50%. All right, so hopefully that helps some. These are quick on the fly videos, so hopefully it still helps you kind of form an understanding. But please ask any questions.